The Fallen Woman. Prompt from 2nd of January 2023. When the fairy's love spell fades, a family has to deal with the consequences of it. No, I thought I had more time. What's that, dear? Mr. Gillespie peered over at his lover from behind his morning paper. Nothing, my love. You just keep reading your paper there. I just need to go sort the window out. All right, darling. Be careful. That latch has been a terror lately. Virtue rushed over to the window, where a lady stood looking in from the other side, her dark hair braided with ruby ribbons. She wore a scarlet Polonaise dress that served to make her look both the average lady and allowed her to stand out from the crowd. She twirled her burgundy lace parasol as she waited for Virtue to cross the room. I thought I had more time, Virtue stressed, opening the window ajar. I told you, spells of this nature don't last forever. Please, one more week. Miss Ravisham, I really must protest. You've had enough time as it is. But I love him. The Scarlet Lady tutted an exaggerated tart of disbelief. What you feel for Mr. Weston Gillespie is not love. It's infatuation. Got that? Infatuation. She smiled, reaching through the window for Virtue's hand. Is there really nothing else to be done? Virtue gave one last weak attempt at changing the lady's mind. Give me your hand so I may land upon it. Virtue did as she was told, stifling the flow of a tear with her left index finger. The lady at the window exploded in a confetti of red sparkles and shrunk to no larger than the nib of a quill before planting her feet on her host's hand. Now, stay still so I can get this over with. There are others I want to help from the kindness of my heart. Oh, you are a piece of work. I try. The Scarlet Fairy smirked, digging the base of her parasol into the skin of Miss Ravisham, who cried out as a blood-like ether flowed out from under her skin. Is there no other way to end this spell? There is another way. The fairy looked up into Virtue's giant eyes. Really? Yes, it's called dying of magic poisoning, and I would not recommend it. I had an aunt who died from it, nasty business. Yeah, I get the picture. Virtue looked over her shoulder at Mr. Gillespie, who was still enjoying his reading. He'd make the occasional or huh expression when he reached moments of interest. This isn't fair, What isn't? The fairy asked as the last of the ether left Virtue's skin. Taking all this away from me. Oh, my dear foolish mortal, it was never really yours to begin with. All I did was give you a little something that made him feel for you what you think you feel for him. What do you know of my feelings? Virtue scoffed. I make it my business to see that all my clients are in good hands. An aggressive knock rapped at the door. Miss Ravisham, be a dear and get that, won't you? Mr. Gillespie gently ordered, not tearing his eyes from his paper. Virtue set the fairy down on the window, making sure to close it to avoid any escaping, and did as she was asked, going off to answer the door. Moments later she returned with a woman with pursed lips and a wrinkled brow, who looked as if she might explode at any moment. Oh, hello, darling. Did you lose your key? Mr. Gillespie folded his paper up and set it down on his lap, admiring his wife in the doorway. Darling? You have some nerve. It's one thing making out with your housekeeping hussy, but forgetting your daughter's birthday, and now this. Mrs. Gillespie threw her hands up in the air of disbelief. These accusations will not fly. The man got to his feet. Miss Ravisham is a loyal and trusted member of my staff. How dare you accuse? Accuse? You've been together for 2 months. Mrs. Gillespie stared dead into her husband's eyes. This can't be true. I think I would know if... But Mr. Gillespie did know it to be true. The spell may have altered his feelings, but it didn't affect his memory. And he clearly remembered being with his housekeeper despite not being able to comprehend it. Virtue couldn't bear to see the man she loved so distressed, and so she ran to the fairy and snatched the parasol from her tiny hand. Don't do it, the fairy pleaded. But it was too late. Virtue had injected the expired spell back into her body. She immediately felt woozy and reached for the window for air. See me, my love. She called over to Mr. Gillespie, who stood next to his wife in a state of apprehensive concern. See me and love me. Virtue couldn't open a window. The latch was stuck. She pushed and pushed, but eventually the effort became too much for her weakening state, and she slid to the ground. Mr. Gillespie went to run over to Virtue, but his wife put an arm out in front of him. She was more than happy to see her get her dues, even if she had no inclination of what was happening. As Virtue Ravisham closed her eyes for the final time, the fairy expanded back into the size of a human, plucked the tiny parasol out from Virtue's warm dead hand, grew that back to its normal size, and stepped over the body. "Sorry about all this," she said, passing Mr. and Mrs. Gillespie. "I'll see myself out."